Hi, welcome back to antique.com. Very strange. I obtained 3 tower cases. Well, there's actually 2 tower cases and 1 desktop, but they're all exactly the same design of case, with this bit with the triangular button and the grey bit, except for obviously the desktop is on its side and this piece is this way round inside it. Just randomly I opened up one of them and it was a Pentium 2 Celeron slot 1 motherboard, which I thought, oh, okay, you don't get many of those. So I opened up the second one and it was not the same motherboard, but it was a similar sort of slot 1 processor, except for this time it was a Pentium 3 500, and I've opened up this one, and this is also a Pentium 3 500, except for this is a dual slot motherboard. And I've started looking at this, and this motherboard is completely different to the other two. This is a server motherboard because it has ultra SCSI, wide SCSI and ultra SCSI, as well as IDE. So it's, you know, potentially could take dozens of hard drives. It's also got some 64-bit PCI, some normal PCI, and then it's got AGP and AGP Pro. So this is one of these strange motherboards where it is trying to be a workstation stroke server motherboard at the same time, that it's giving you the outputs, i.e. AGP, onboard sound, etc., that you'd normally see on a workstation, but it's got the SCSI connectors for multiple hard drives, which you would normally see on more of a sort of storage side of machines. What is, I won't say confusing, but is new to me, is that this has memory in, but this is Rambus memory. Now, Rambus memory is not DDR memory and it's not SD-RAM, it's somewhere between the two. Now the good thing is this memory is as cheap as anything, because it wasn't really widely adopted, so whatever is out there isn't necessarily being used in machines. So there are 2 128 meg sticks in the server, on the machine, and there's also 2 blocker cards, blanks, whatever you want to call them, to take in the other 2 slots. So I've had a quick look online. It's as cheap as chips. I think if it boots and works using as it is, I might well go out and purchase a little bit more memory for this. Secondly, I'm not sure I'd leave it in this case, because you can see that a lot of the stuff is actually covered up, because it's a lot deeper than you would expect. Everything's just a little bit sort of cramped in here with this power supply. I have another case that's more of a sort of server type case, but it's a bit blingy. So I'm not sure. I'll just see how this goes for now. You know, I noticed things like, you know, that all the screws are missing for where it's being held in place. So maybe this has literally just been bodged into this case. We'll see. So I'm going to put this memory back in, going to give it a couple of little checks, make sure everything's where it should be. I notice all of these are not connected. Maybe strip all these devices out so it's just completely clear. Maybe even put the power supply up here so I can see everything, and then give it a go and see what happens. So catch me in a bit when I've played with this. So in the machine originally there was 2 sticks of 128 meg. You'll notice that there seems to be an awful lot of pins missing in the middle, and these 2 little slots. These are what differ physically the Rambus memory from other types of memory. This was, from what I understand, an evolution of SD-RAM. That was going towards what now we call DDR-RAM, but this was a different direction. It's reasonably proprietary, not very well used or supported. The good part about that is whatever RAM is out there is dirt cheap at the moment. So for me, that's been a bonus. I've been able to pick up 4 sticks of 512 meg for like £20, which is quite cheap as far as I'm concerned. Also, the machine wouldn't boot with these in, whatever combination or routine I put them in. So I'm imagining that they're actually duff memory. So we'll put them to one side. But also in the motherboard were these, which are like blankers for the other channel. So there was on channel 1 there was these pair of 128s, and on channel 2 there was these pair of memory blanks, I guess is the best way to describe these. So as I say, I've put 4 sticks of 512 in, and I now get the motherboard to boot and post, which is a lot further than I thought I was going to get. Okay, so here you can see a Cooler Master stacker case. I picked this up at the local charity dump a few months back. I haven't really done anything with it other than just sit it there gathering dust, but I thought this would be the ideal tower unit to put the motherboard into. It has got some bits and bobs inside which I really don't need, but what I am after is the space and size, because you can see this will take a full width motherboard. It also has an extraordinary number of drive bays which the SCSI will support, so depending on how I find SCSI drives, that might well work. So I'm going to pull this to pieces, clean this up entirely, and then see how we go from there. As for all of the these bunch of wires here which go to this unit on the front at the top here, which is all these additional USBs, I'm probably not going to use those. Earlier I was showing you the motherboard. We finally got that booting with the memory. That's great. And I said I had a case to put it in, which was this Cool Master stacker case, and you can see it's called stacker because you can stack loads of hard drives in it, and it's also, more importantly, full width, which means I can get the full size motherboard in. If I show you the motherboard that was inside the case, you can see how much smaller it is in terms of width. So the motherboard itself, as I said, has got Rambus memory and only one 500 megahertz processor at the moment. In an ideal world, I'll find another 500 megahertz processor, but I'm looking for a matched pair. So if a matched pair of processors come up at the right price, that are a different speed, then I will go for those. But in an ideal world, I'll find a matched 500. I also need to find the right AGP card for this. I've just borrowed the graphics card out of the Pentium Pro machine, and I've connected no other peripherals whatsoever at the moment. I'm still testing this motherboard in terms of what works, what doesn't work. The one thing that is concerning me more than anything is the power. So I have this Zalman 500 watt power supply connected to it, and that's fine. But what I have noticed is that it switches on immediately that I connect the power supply. It doesn't wait for me to press the power switch. Me pressing the power switch to shut it down has no effect whatsoever. It only operates literally off the mains, on or off. I've changed the BIOS battery, but I haven't set up anything in the BIOS at all. I've literally just let it boot as default. So it's saying some bits and bobs on here that don't make any sense. So for example, it is saying that the RAM has got 4 sticks of 128 meg, but at the same time, when you boot the machine, it counts up to 1 gig of memory, but it's actually 2 gig of memory that's in the machine. So something's not set up right in the machine somewhere. So there's a fair chunk of work to do on this, to find some processors, to sort out the memory and find the right graphics card, and that's before I even start connecting any peripherals to it. So this, as I say, this is a Cooler Master case with a Supermicro twin processor motherboard. Part 1, find a case to put it in, get it booted into BIOS, job done. Next job, sort out the BIOS, find the processors and a decent graphics card. So that will be my next video, and then by that time I will probably have it just strung off an IDE drive and just Windows 2000 installed, and then we can start testing some of these peripherals and make sure that everything's working fine. So thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, like. If you haven't, dislike. I need feedback. If you want to subscribe, by all means do so. So in the meantime, thank you very much, and I shall get on playing with this and doing some research.